Hello, it's October, so I usually try to do some somewhat Halloween themed-ish games in October. So my first one is going to be Gloomy Graves. This is a card game. This came out in 2020. I picked it up last year on a sale right after Halloween for pretty cheap. Anyway, let's get started with how to set up and play Gloomy Graves. Alright, the first thing you can do is take your corpse deck, and then depending on the number of players, you're going to remove a certain number of cards. So I'm going to be setting up for a 3-player game. So these are the back of the deck. For the 3-player game, you'll remove the 10 cards that have the 3 shovels on the back of the card back, like that. So here's the 10 with the 3 shovels. Those will be removed and not used in the game. If you were playing a 2-player game, you would remove the 20 cards in the deck that have the 2 shovels, and then you would remove an additional 3 cards at random. And if you were playing a 4-player game, you would just remove any 1 card at random. Alright, next you're going to take your scorecards and sort them by type. You'll see these are dragons, and you're going to lay them out by point value, which is the top number here. So 2, 4, 6, and 10 points, all for dragons. So you'll just lay those out somewhere near the play area. You'll do that for each of the 5 types of corpses. So here we have the Cyclops. Let me get these all laid out and I'll come back and tell you the different types. Alright, here you'll see I've got all the scorecards laid out. You've got grave types for pixies, goblins, unicorns, cyclops, and dragons. And you arrange the 4-point cards, scorecards for each of that type in point order. So 2, 4, 6, 10, 2, 4, 6, 10 for each of the 5 types. And just put those somewhere near the play area where all players can reach them. Next, you'll shuffle your corpse deck, place that somewhere near the players, and reveal the top 3 cards. Next, you'll reveal 2 of the corpse cards and place them side by side in the center of the play area. You'll want to leave plenty of room around these cards to add other cards, because this is going to be your communal graveyard and it will grow every turn. Next, you'll deal each player 5 cards. This will be their hand, so they'll want to keep those secret from other players. I'm going to go ahead and finish dealing these out, and I will come back. Alright, as I said, I'm setting up for a 3-player game, so I've dealt each player their 5 cards. Each player will then look at their hand and choose 1 card to start their private crypt with. They'll play that face down in front of themselves. So once all players have done that, we'll just randomly say this player's going to do this one. The players will have a reason to choose. Maybe they'll want to choose one that they've got other similar cards. But players will choose 1 card, place it in front of themselves. Once all players have chosen one for their private crypt and place it in front of themselves, then all players will go ahead and reveal the card they've chosen. There's a player aid card you can give to each player. And then the rules say the player who most recently visited a graveyard can take the start player card. I'll just give that to my player over here on the far left like I normally do. The first player never changes, so really that's just the person that's going to start the game. After that, it just goes in clockwise order with players taking turns until the end of the game. And that completes setup. Everyone should now have a hand of 4 cards. They should have their initial card for their private crypt, you'll have the scorecards laid out. You'll have your deck of corpse cards with 3 cards laid out next to it, and your communal graveyard started in the center of the play area. Now we're ready to learn how to play Gloomy Graves. Alright, so how do we play the game? Well, first of all, the premise of the game is that you're a grave digger in a fantasy world where there's always battles going on between dragons, cyclops, unicorns, pixies, and goblins. And corpses are bearing up, so you've got to bury the corpses in a most organized manner, possible. Anyway, that's kind of the loose premise of the game. So what you do on your turn, starting with the first player, and you can see this on the player aid card. The first thing you have to do is bury corpses, 1 card in your private crypt. Remember, each player started with 1 card they chose to be their private crypt, and 1 card in the communal graveyard. So we'll look at this player's hand. First thing he's got to do is add 1 card to his private crypt. So maybe he's going to choose this one. Now, there's some placement rules. So when you place a card in your private crypt, you can place it adjacent to a card that's already existing, or you can place it where it partially covers another card, like so, or you can place it where it completely covers another card, like so. The few caveats are your private crypt can never be bigger than 3 by 3, so it could be, well, you could have 1 more, but it can never be bigger than 3 by 3, and also that actually isn't possible because you cannot have, these are grave diggers, and you can never have more than 1 grave digger in a row or column, so that placement really wouldn't have been possible. I guess I could have put 1 here and so forth. But anyway, you place 1. Let me get back to where I was. Some of the other placement rules for the private crypt, besides that you can place a card adjacent, can't be bigger than 3 by 3, adjacent, partially cover, or fully cover. And then there's some rules that cover both the private crypt and the communal crypt, and then that's that graves can cover other graves. Grave diggers can cover other graves, but other graves cannot cover grave diggers, so you can't cover up a grave digger with another grave. And grave diggers cannot be adjacent to each other, which this is, in the private crypt, obviously you can't, I said you can't have more than 1 grave digger in the same row or column, so you wouldn't have 1 adjacent to each other anyway. But in the communal crypt, you don't have that rule about not having more than 1 in the same row or column. But in either crypt, you can't put grave diggers adjacent to each other. And adjacency is orthogonal. And finally, you can't place cards beneath other cards. They can only go on top. All right, so I know that was a lot of rules, and when we do some example turns, we'll go over that again. But so the first thing, as I said, you'll do on your turn is place 1 card from your hand into your private crypt, following the rules that I mentioned. So for the private crypt, you can put 1 adjacent, so I'm going to put 1 there. That's legal. It's not bigger than 3 by 3, and so forth. So that's 1. Now you also have to place 1 on the communal crypt. So when placing a card on the communal crypt, it follows the basic rules of graves can cover other graves, grave diggers can cover other graves, grave diggers cannot be adjacent to each other, and other graves cannot cover a grave digger, and cards cannot be placed beneath other cards. But the one other rule that's different from the private crypt for the communal graveyard is that whenever you place a card there, you must always cover half of an existing card and the other half has to cover the playing surface. So you're always growing the communal graveyard by half a card length for every player every turn. So whereas your private crypt can never be bigger than 3 by 3, the communal graveyard will grow every turn, every time a player takes a turn, because half of their card has to go on the playing surface, so it will always grow. So we'll say for this player's turn, maybe he's going to place this card here. That way he's covering half of an existing card and the other half is covering playing surface. So that's a legal play. Alright, so that is the bury corpses portion of a player's turn. Next is they score graves. The scoring graves is optional. You don't have to do that on your turn, and on your first few turns you probably won't. So to score graves, you're going to try to score one type of grave. So either dragons or cyclops or unicorns or goblins or pixies. And you can only score, you can only choose to score a type that was on the card that you placed in the communal graveyard. So you don't score grave diggers. I played this card this turn, so I would only be able to score unicorns since you can't score grave diggers. So you'd have to choose one of the types that you placed and try to score that type. So when you score, you count the largest contiguous group of adjacent graves of that type in both the communal graveyard and the private crypt. So in this case, and when you're doing that, grave diggers are wild. So in this case, the largest contiguous group of unicorns in the communal graveyard is just 2. You know, that since the grave digger is wild, that would be 1, 2. And then add also in my private crypt, the largest contiguous group is 2, so a total of 4. So I would not be able to score because the lowest amount you can have to score is 8. So if I did have a total, maybe I had 5 contiguous in the communal graveyard and 3 contiguous in my private crypt, so I had a total of 8, I could grab this scorecard, which will be worth 2 points for me at the end of the game. Now, one thing is, once you score a type of grave, you cannot score that type again in the future. So if I chose to, if I had 8 and I chose to take this one for unicorns, I couldn't in the future score unicorns again. So if even on my turn there was, a group of 15 contiguous in the communal and my private, I couldn't score that because I've already scored it. So you have to choose when to score because you can't score that type again. You only get to score each graveyard type one time. When you score, if maybe on your turn you chose to score unicorns and there was 14, maybe 10 contiguous in the communal graveyard and 4 contiguous in your private crypt for a total of 14, well then you couldn't take the one that requires 15, but then you take the next lowest down, which would be the 12. If the 12 was already taken, then you would score the next lowest down, which is the 10. But again, you choose if you want to score each turn. You don't have to. You can wait until a future turn and try to score. All right, so after you score, if you choose to, the next thing you do is draw cards. You're going to draw, since you played 2 cards, you're going to draw 2 cards back into your hand. You can either draw one from the line of available cards, and if you do, you take that into your hand, then reveal another one, and then choose another one, or you can just draw off the deck, similar to Ticket to Ride if you've played that. Once you've drawn cards into your hand, that ends your turn, and it goes to the next player's turn in clockwise order. And then they'll do the same. They'll bury corpses, one in their private crypt, one in the communal graveyard, choose to score or not. Draw cards. And you'll keep going until something triggers the game end. So there's 2 ways to trigger the game end. Either when one player has scored one of each type of grave, that will trigger the game end, or if a player has to draw a card and there's no cards left in the draw pile, that will trigger the game end. When the game end is triggered, you'll go ahead and finish that round. So the player sitting to the right of the start player would be the last player to take a turn that round. The only thing, players that still get to take a turn after the round is the game end is triggered, you'll go ahead and do your bury corpses and score graves part of your turn, but you won't draw cards because you won't get another opportunity to play them anyway. So again, once the game end is triggered, you finish the round, so the player to the right of the start player will be the last player to take a turn, and then you do final scoring. So any scorecards that you've taken, you'll add those up. You can also get some bonus points by looking at the back of your player aid, and then for each different type of scoring card. So if you manage to get 3 different types of scoring cards, maybe unicorns, goblins, and pixies, then you'll score 5 bonus points. If you manage to get 4 different types of scoring cards, you'll score 10 bonus points. And if you got all 5 different types, you'll score 15 bonus points. So you add up all your scoring cards plus any bonus points, and the player with the highest point total is the winner. If there's a tie, then between the tied players, whichever one of them has the highest point scorecard, like maybe the other player only had a 2, 4, a 6, and the other tied player happened to have a 10, so they would win. If they both happen to have that same highest scorecard, then they compare their second highest and so on until a winner is determined. And that's it. That's how you play. It's actually pretty simple. If that seemed confusing, if it was confusing on the placement of the cards and how you score, then let's do a few example turns, and hopefully that'll click for you. So let me set the game back up to how it was right after we did setup, and we'll go through some example turns. Alright, everything is set back up to how it was at the beginning right after setup. This player is the first player as seen by his first player card, and we'll probably do just what we did when I was going over the rules. First you got to play 2 cards, one to your private crypt and one to the communal graveyard. So he's going to play this one to his private crypt and this one to the communal graveyard. Again, following the rules, you can place in the private crypt, you can place one adjacent or partially on top or fully on top of another card, but it can't be bigger than 3 by 3. And in the communal graveyard, you always have to place half a card on top of another grave and half on top of the playing surface. Alright, time for him to score graves. There's nothing he can really score at this point, so he's not going to score, and now he's just going to draw cards. He's trying to go for unicorns, it looks like, so he'll take this card, put it in his hand. Now we immediately refill, and then he doesn't see another one with unicorns there. They all do have grave diggers, which are wild, so that's pretty good, but he's going to go ahead and draw one off the top, and he got a grave digger as well. Alright, so that's going to end his turn. Alright, it's this player's turn. He's got 2 bury corpses, so he's going to be trying to go for cyclopses first. So he's going to place this one adjacent, which is a valid move in his private crypt, and now he's going to place one in the communal graveyard. So he's going to take this one, and I think he's going to place it like this. Again, you have to cover half of a already existing grave and half with the playing surface, so that's legal. You can't put a grave on top of a grave digger, but you can put a grave digger on top of another grave. Anyway, so that's a legal placement. And now he would score, but there's nothing really for him to score. He can't get at least 8 contiguous, so he's not going to score. So now he'll just draw cards back into his hand. Since he's going for cyclopses, he will draw that one, and we got to reveal another one, and he likes that one because it has cyclops as well. He'll add that to his hand. Remember, your hand is kept secret. I've just got these revealed since I'm playing solo, but he does have to reveal another card at this point, and that's going to end his turn. So we'll go on to our third player. Well, our third player has lots of goblins in his hand, so he thinks he's going to go for that. So he's going to take this card, place it here, and then he's going to take one of his other cards with goblins, and he's going to, remember, he can't just place it adjacent because he's got to cover, in the communal graveyard, you have to cover one other grave. So he's going to thwart this guy trying to go for Cyclopses by placing his goblin grave on top of that Cyclops grave, so the second player's not going to be too happy about that. But that's going to end his turn. Now, he would have the opportunity to score, but he still doesn't have enough to score because he's only got 3 contiguous there and 1, 2, 3. Because, oh, you know what? He couldn't place that. You can't place gravediggers adjacent to each other, so that was a illegal move. You not only can't place them adjacent, you can't place them in the same row. So let's say he did this. This was his placement in his private grave, or his private crypt. That's legal. All right, so he would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still not enough to score, so he doesn't score, so he's just going to draw. There happens to be one with goblins in the row, so he'll take that. Reveal another one. Nothing with goblins there, so he'll draw one off the top, just hoping he gets one, which he didn't. That's going to end his turn. Alright, it's back to our first player's turn again. So we know he's trying to go for unicorns, so he can place one here. Again, you can place one adjacent, and it's not bigger than 3 by 3 at this point. So he's placed one in his private crypt. Now he has to place one in the communal graveyard. Let's see what else. He doesn't have any other unicorns, but he does have some grave diggers, which are wild. So he's going to place that here. And he still doesn't have enough to score because he has 1, 2, 3. Remember, the gravediggers are wild, so if he's going for unicorns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need a minimum of 8. There's nothing really else he can score because they're the goblins. There's 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, and 1. So that's really all he can do. He's not going to be able to score. So he'll go ahead and draw. He doesn't see any with unicorns. He's going to take off the top. He got a unicorn, and he'll take one more off the top. And a unicorn. So that worked out well for him. That's going to end his turn. We'll go on to our next player. Well, our next player had been going for Cyclopses, the one that he or she had placed up here got taken. We'll say it's a she for this turn. So she's going to go ahead and place another one. That's a legal placement. Doesn't make it bigger than 3 by 3. You can place adjacent in the private crypt. And now she's going to take this one and place it up here. And that would give her 1, 2, 3 Cyclopses in the communal graveyard. And 1, 2, 3, 6. Still not enough to score anything. So now she'll just draw a card. She'll take this one because it has Cyclops. Put that in her hand. We reveal another one. Nothing with the Cyclops. Again, those are wild, so they may be worth taking, but she's going to draw one off the top and add that to her hand, and that's going to end her turn. Alright, we'll come back to our next player. They were going for goblins, so they're going to go for goblins again, so they're going to place one adjacent, which again is valid in the private crypt. You can't do that in the communal crypt, or communal graveyard, but let's see now. Now they got to place one in the communal. You can place gravediggers on other gravediggers. I don't know if I mentioned that. You remember, you can't place a grave on top of a gravedigger, but you can place a gravedigger on another gravedigger. So once again, they're going to aggravate the second player by covering their Cyclops, yeah, there's Cyclops grave with a grave digger. Oh, no, it can't do that. Can't place them adjacent. Oh, that's illegal what we've got right there. Can't have grave diggers adjacent, so that player couldn't have placed that there. We'll say they placed it like this. Okay. Now this player going back to placing theirs, and they will cover a gravedigger with a gravedigger. That is valid. Alright, so that gives them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They could score if they want to, because the lowest number, it's only worth 2 points, but it will give them a possibility to grab a scorecard, so I think they're going to take it. They've got 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Gravedigger's wild. 1, 2, 3. Total of 8. They're going to take that. So they just put it in their play area. Now they cannot score goblins again. So even if later there's more where they could get a higher score, they can't take it. They're stuck with their low score of 2 points. All right. Now they've got to draw cards. They're not going to be trying to get goblins anymore because they've already scored that. So maybe they'll take this. Maybe we're going to try to go for pixies. So they'll take this one. Alright, and that's going to end their turn. Well, we'll do one more round. So we're back to our first player. They're still trying to go for unicorns. Now they can't place another one because that would make them bigger than a 3x3. But they can... let's see, they don't have here. Well, alright, they're going to place this. You can place a grave on another grave. That's not going to make it bigger than 3x3. You can place on partially or fully on top of in your private crypt. Well, that's not going to really give them more unicorns because it's contiguous. They wouldn't be able to count that and that. So, gosh, I don't know. They don't have a... Maybe for now they're just going to decide they're going to try to go for goblins as well. So they're going to place this gravedigger here, which will give them 3. And now they got to put one in the communal graveyard. Unfortunately, they don't have goblins. So they'll take this one with unicorns and place that there. That's legal because we're covering half of an existing card and half of the play surface. So they're not going to be able to score because they own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goblins, 6, 7, 8. The 8's already taken, so not enough for them to score, and they can't score unicorns because they've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not enough for unicorns, so they can't really score anything. Not enough of any of the other types, so they're just going to draw. I think they'll take this one, add that to their hand, and maybe they'll take this one and add that to their hand. Alright, it's the second player's turn. They're not sure what to do because they can't manage to get any Cyclopses in the communal graveyard. They keep getting covered up. But I guess they're going to try again, so they're going to add this Cyclops here to their private crypt, and then they're going to add this Cyclops here to the communal graveyard. That just gives them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not enough to score anything. So they're just going to draw. They'll draw this one, reveal, and then they'll just draw this one into their hand. And now we're back to our third player. Let's see what they're going to try. They've already got the goblins. There's not really much of anything else here they can get. Alright, so maybe they're going to, since they've got unicorns, maybe they're going to try to get unicorns. So they will go there. They're still not bigger than 3 by 3, and now they got to place. They don't have any unicorns to place here. They do have a wild, and so maybe they'll place that here. Remember, you don't have the rule in the communal graveyard. You don't have the rule about not having grave diggers in the same row or column. They just can't be adjacent. But still, only 1, 2 unicorns, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's still only 6. So no scoring card can be taken. So he'll just draw. And that's going to end their turn. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I mean, I think it gives you an idea of how it works and the placement rules, and you've seen me mess up on placing. It's kind of hard to talk and hold a camera and pay attention to the rules and what you're doing for 3 players at the same time. So you've seen I've made a couple of mistakes, but luckily I caught them. But anyway, as the game goes on and the communal graveyard gets bigger, the players start having opportunities to score faster. And usually after one player, like this one scored this goblins for 2. Well, if people start adding more goblins, then they'll be able to grab one for the higher, and maybe the other player will start trying to block that off with their card placement to block the other people from getting the ones they just scored. But anyway, that wraps it up. I've just played this one time solo to learn how to play. It's really not my type of game, but I think it would be a fun kind of family game. It's not very difficult as far as comprehending the rules or anything, and I think it plays fairly quickly. Again, not something that I would probably pull out with my gaming friends when we're having a gaming weekend, but it is something I would, see if maybe my wife and daughter wanted to try to play for a Halloween themed-ish game. Of course, it's not very creepy or anything for a Halloween game, but all right, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.